Welcome to Mental Performance Unleashed with Emily Heird.
Welcome back to Mental Performance Unleashed. I'm Emily Heird, a licensed psychotherapist and mental performance mastery coach, and I help high-performing attorneys and legal leaders build the mental skills required for sustainable elite performance. I'm joined again by Dennis D.M. Meador, founder and CEO of the Legal Podcast Network. Dennis works closely with attorneys across the country and has a unique vantage point into how high performers operate under pressure. Today, we're talking about resilience and where high achieving attorneys often misunderstand what resilience actually requires. Dennis, welcome back.
Great to be back.
All right, so Dennis, you and I have, I think, kind of a shared mission with our attorney clients. Your goal, I think, from my perspective, is to help take parts of their job, their business building off their plate to reduce stress and allow them to operate in their zone of genius of being the lawyer. And my goal as a performance coach is to help them build the mental skills that they need to have sustainable success and not let the chronic stress and pressure of this industry lead to burnout, anxiety, mental health issues, and sometimes ultimately leaving the legal industry. So I'm curious from your perspective, DM, working with hundreds of attorneys, what patterns do you consistently see in how high performers handle sustained pressure?
Well, I think the first thing that I see is the ability to delegate. I would say that I have had more conversations over the last 23 years in talking to attorneys. And, some of those, there's been years I've talked to thousands or multiple hundreds of them. And the most common conversation that I have with attorneys is being willing to actually let go of the pieces of what they do in order to be more successful. The data entry, the answering their own telephone, the, filing this and taking this there and stopping by the bank and, whatever it is, these little tasks that a business owner feels like they've done something that day, but in all actuality, they've accomplished nothing that day. And so that conversation is a conversation that I've probably had no less than 250 times. So on average, 10-ish, once a month on average over the last 23 years, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So having that conversation over and over and over, that has been the big thing that really has been the thing that stops growth of attorneys. They get frustrated, they get mad, they feel like they're spinning their wheels, their cases aren't growing, they're not making money, and all the while they're doing $10 an hour jobs to save a couple $100 a week instead of gaining clients, working with clients and billing at $350, $400 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been the biggest thing that I've seen. And I hear this all the time. Well, they just can't do it as well as me.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they can't, but if they could do it 80%, 75% to what you could do, and then you could move on to the thing that only you can do, you're going to be a lot more successful short and long term.
Absolutely. That conversation sounds very familiar with the attorneys that I work with around delegation, trust, perfectionism, letting go of control, the concept of the return on your time and energy, all that very familiar. In your experience, how do high performing attorneys, and even, let's be honest, entrepreneurs, business owners, this doesn't only apply to the legal landscape, but how do high performing attorneys and others in your industry that you work in really define resilience?
I think resilience, there's two folds. One is resilience in the midst of a storm is a sort of mental ability to calm yourself in spite of what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're standing in the midst of like a hurricane of craziness and you're just like, don't worry about it, everybody. We know where we're going. We know what we're doing. So I would say that is one aspect of it, is there is an internal, and I like to use this phrase. I'm not sure if I'm natural born or trauma built, right? So that is a natural trauma response that, we kind of slow down. But I think that people that can, one, slow down in kind of those crazy times, but two, become reassuring to others.
Mhm.
Because usually when craziness happens, it's like an infectious disease.
Yeah.
And, again, I just talked about this in my meeting the other day. I feel a frenetic energy in my company because we've got too many people trying to accomplish too many things with too many projects and too many tasks, and plus their core job and plus everything else. And so I just had to come and say, all right, everybody, we've got to calm down. We're going to bring in these solutions to slow things down. I met with another person today and I said, listen, I know you've got all these other things. I want you to push those off to the side. Those are not your priority. I want you to focus on your core thing that you're here for. Work with your team for 2 weeks. I'm hands off. You show me at the end of 2 weeks that you can drive this very particular issue and make an impact on it without me having to interfere. So I
Mhm.
think that's really where success comes in, the calmness and then the ability to then spread that across your team to where there's a calm that comes across. And now together you're walking forward with precision, with purpose, and without that freneticism that can set in a company so easily.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm hearing a lot of emotional regulation, which is what I definitely work on with my clients. That ability to maintain calm in stressful times when that hurricane is happening. Your energy as a leader is contagious to the rest of your team. They automatically, calm and feel reassured. They have trust in the leader. But then it also helps with clarity of decision making. We cannot make
Hmm.
clear decisions if our body is not physically calm. It's just the way that our brain and our body operate together. So that's resilience. Where do you think that's definitely a vantage, a definition of resilience, like maintaining that optimism. And optimism does not mean, a lot of people think about optimistic mindset as someone who thinks that everything is sunshine and roses, but that's naive optimism. Optimism,
Yeah.
takes into account there are going to be problems, there are going to be challenges. We're going to get through it to, get to that destination that we have on our map. And here's how we're going to get through it together. So, where do you see that maybe other people's definition of resilience or attorneys that you've talked to, like maybe they say they're being resilient, but where do you see that definition of resilience falling short from others that you've talked to?
Well, I think when the word stubbornness is just switched out with resilience, like I'm not moving, I'm gonna do it. I know the world is falling around me, but I'm not gonna move. I'm not gonna do like that's not resilience.
No.
That's freeze. You got
Hmm.
fight, flight, or freeze. You
Yeah.
just froze with a smile on your face.
Yeah.
So like you're not helping your team, you're not helping your situation by freezing. And so I think that freezing up is often mistaken for resilience, stubbornness, things like that. And then I think the other thing that happens with resilience is instead of looking at the situation, talking to the people that are a part of them, hey, like, what am I missing? What's going on here? What's going on there? And really gathering all the information, they make a decision and then they decide to charge forward no matter what the cost.
Hmm.
And when we start charging forward and we just, well, you're wrong here, and we just like kind of, we just like, all of a sudden we become the whirlwind that we were protecting everybody from. And we get in a place like, and again, just having worked with business partners and worked under people, I've seen people in times of tragedy, instead of getting calm and bringing clarity, they start becoming the cause of the storm, and they just start yelling at people, getting in the midst of things, oh, you're doing that wrong. And
Hmm.
they multiply the actual chaos
Yeah.
as opposed to becoming the person that actually settles the storm. So that's definitely two things that like some people consider it resilience, but honestly, it's just stubbornness and it's
Hmm.
just aggressiveness.
Yeah.
And it's very rare that those two things are going to be the thing that is going to help you get through the particular situation that you're in.
Hmm. Great points. Yeah. So some of that aggressiveness can be someone's fear response to the stress into the situation. And when we operate out of fear, that definitely has an impact on the team, on creating more chaos and more stress for people. So it's really important for each individual, and this is something that I work on with my clients, to have awareness of their own tendencies to react, and getting out of reaction mode to how do we intentionally want to respond to this situation. And oftentimes that starts with slowing down ourselves. And you mentioned this a little bit in that previous answer around, like a lot of times people have an association with resilience and like working harder and pushing through. And definitely the overcommitment, the overworking can be and is rewarded as a strength inside law firms and other businesses. And so where do you, in your work with attorneys, see this overcommitment as being rewarded, even though it might be having a negative impact kind of under the water that other people or that person themselves isn't seeing yet?
I think when you have a culture of, you can call it hustle culture, overwork culture, I here's the thing that amazes me, and I've done enough in corporate to just be like very disenfranchised with it.
Hmm.
Corporate spends so much time wasting time from 9 to 5 that they have to work after hours to get their work done because they're being social, they're on games, they're got this activity like. And so to me, I'm just one of those people, and this is why I love having a remote company, because no one's hanging around the water cooler at my office, gossiping about Sally. Now I don't know what their little chats and back and forth are about, but my
Hmm.
point is this: like, in a culture where we see presence as um, as progress.
Hmm.
If we see somebody working hard because they're at their desk till 9, and then somebody else can be done at 3:30 and actually produce more than them, I think that there's been a priority shift.
Yeah.
And so, I am more about measuring the what I call metrics that matter. What each department has. This is what I need to know, and if this number is right, I can see a few numbers below. But if they all look right, I don't care about everything else.
Hmm.
I don't care. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I do that with each department. But what ends up happening is we start at the bottom metric. Well, how many hours were you here this week?
Yeah.
How many this? And it's all about the things that we say, if we do 20 of this, then we'll get one of these. Well, what if we can get 3 of these in, 5 of these? So it takes 5 hours to get 3 instead of 20 to get 1. Most corporate structures are designed to reward the person who takes 20 hours to get 1 than they are to reward the person who only takes 5 hours to get 3.
Hmm.
And so when you flip everything, not based off of time, but based off of the metrics that matter and then the measurables beyond that, then you can start. Because I just had a couple meetings with some newer people, and I was like, listen, if you're setting 12 to 15 appointments a week, I don't care if you do 200 dials a day.
Hmm.
200 dials a day is just what we know it takes. If you don't have a great skill set, that's a effort matrix. But at the end of the day, we don't get paid on effort matrix. We get paid on the metrics that matter.
Hmm.
So that's what I would be. That's kind of how I would be looking at that and thinking about that across my company.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that requires a mindset shift, not only for the legal industry and the legal culture, but also entrepreneurs. And because we are so conditioned to believe in our culture that, like we have to work 9 to 5, and work 8 hours, that for any person, especially if you start your own business, that takes a mindset shift, that it's really about accomplishing the things that matter, that are going to move the needle the most. And if it takes you 3 hours instead of 8 hours, fantastic. You have some time for living life, for stress management and recovery. And so in terms of, building a business, you've been there, you're building a business, I've been there. Um, as leaders, sometimes we can fall into this pattern of accessibility. And I know my lawyer clients struggle with this because they want to be accessible for their clients. They want to be accessible
Yes.
for their staff and always available. how does constant accessibility impact long-term performance in leadership in general, whether you're in the legal industry or a different one?
So if you are always accessible, that means that a certain part of your brain is always on, which means that you're not going to act in a certain other part. So one of the things that I've done is I don't have email on my phone. I also, like I said, will turn off my phone all weekend. My EA has my wife's cell phone number. If an emergency happens, then she will, send me a message. But what I've tried to do is very much not like just this again. I like giving the illustrations. Friday night, had one of my sales guys, and he inboxed me on our Roam, and he goes, "Hey, this weekend I'm going to be doing a bunch of studying on like how to get better, and like I'm an open book right now. So if you could tomorrow break down some of my demos that I've done recently, and just take some time, I'd be really open to it." And I kind of thought about it, and I said, I was sitting there relaxing with my wife. And so generally what I'll do is I'll say, if this is not an emergency, I'll deal with this in the morning because my wife's sleeping. I'm kind of sitting at the coffee shop. Then in the morning, I thought about it and I said, hey, listen, I said, I appreciate that you're taking the time to get better. First and foremost, I want you to know that. But I need to have very clear boundaries. And one of those are after 5:30 or so on the evenings, and especially on the weekends, I have committed to being present with my wife to show her that I have the ability to be present with our upcoming child.
Mm.
So as much as I would love to work with you this weekend, and if you knew single Dennis, I certainly, would have been there for you. I'm happy to take Monday morning when I get back and start working on this stuff and examine it and meet with you. And he said, totally understandable. You've told me that before. I appreciate it. As a matter of fact, I respect it. I forgot. I'm sorry. We'll talk Monday. Monday morning, 10 o'clock. He sent me 2 demos. I went through. I showed him some stuff to work on. He's like, wow, this gives me a lot to work on this week. Probably received it better than if I would have sent him a video over the weekend that I listened to 3 hours. So, like, at the end of the day, creating those boundaries it can't just be like, oh, I'm creating this boundary unless you need me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Like there
Right.
has to be what I call triaging.
Yeah.
So like it comes in, Sylvie's like, okay, what's the problem? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
well, you know what? I can handle that. Or you know what? He can handle that on Monday. Ooh, what? So and so with what? Okay, let me text his wife and I'll tell her I'll handle that. Or you know what? I'll get on it right now. But like the text to my wife happens like 3 times a year.
Yeah.
So think about how many interruptions we would be getting
Mm-hmm.
if I just left it open.
Yeah.
And the same thing when you talk about like with our own people and accessible, what I've had to do because growing at scale has been a little bit of a challenge for me because I love to feel connected to the people that I'm working with, my teammates.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're at about 60 people. And
Mm.
sometimes I'll be like, whoa, we've got 4 more people this week. I don't even know who these people are. I'm just signing their paychecks. And so I said, all right, guys, twice a week for a half hour, I take my dog for a walk from 7:15 to 7:45. If you're a director, we have 8 of them. You can book that time and I'll just walk and talk. And whatever you want to talk, you want to talk about the weather, you want to talk about something in your division, you want to talk about what you're struggling with. It doesn't have to be work stuff. It could be about work or just life. But this
Mm-hmm.
gives you a chance to have access to me. Plus 2 times a week, I tell the directors, if you have somebody on your team and you're saying that's one of our people, I hope they stick around, put them on my calendar for a 15-minute face-to-face. So now I have an hour and a half every week where the company as a whole feels like, hey, he's accessible to us, but it's in a structured way where I'm not just taking, hey, do you got a few minutes? I want to chat for a while.
Yeah.
They
Mm-hmm.
know this is how I get a hold of them. This is how I work with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the constant when there are no boundaries, it's the constant interruptions, email, the Slack, the inter-office messaging systems, people stopping by the office when my clients work in the office. Just, hey, do you have a quick question? All those things. So boundaries really help with there's accessibility, but like you said, there's a structure to it. So it's win-win. And when we're constantly accessible, that impacts stress levels. It impacts how many hours we work because we can't get our meaningful work done with the constant interruptions. And then at times that can lead to resentment of the team when really that's on us to kind of set those communication protocols and set those boundaries so that it works for everyone on the team.
Well, but also accessibility exhaustion.
Yes.
Like if, listen, I'm a pretty weird guy. Like I'm high energy.
Mhm.
I've learned that most podcasts I'm talking at a 1.2 naturally. Like I'm high energy. I've got a lot going on. I'm spitting all kinds of stuff outside of my brain. I'm thinking
Mhm.
of this, I'm thinking of that. Like for somebody to spend 20 hours a week with me, they're going to be like, oh my, like worse versus like taking 15 minutes or 30 minutes and us just having a structured conversation. I can
Mhm.
do a lot more in that time than I can in just 10 hours of nothingness. So
Yeah.
the impact time is multiplied just
Mhm.
by structuring your time with your team.
Yeah, great point. So Dennis, last question for today. For, the attorneys that you work with, for managing partners listening, like what from your experience running and growing a company and your experience kind of changing the way you operate to have sustainable success, what is one resilience variable that they should start to evaluate differently this quarter?
Resilience variable that they should start to evaluate. I would say if I was like right now, like my 15 years ago when I was just like carrying two cell phones, an iPad, and a laptop everywhere I went. And once I sat down, I set up my station. Like that was me. Like every moment must be monetized. I worked 18 to 20 hours a day for almost 20 years. Like I was intense. And I know that. But if I was to just start trying to teach myself or somebody like me, the first thing I would say to them is I would say, I want you to ask yourself by doing this, what am I missing? Because, like,
Mm.
for
Mhm.
example, I can brag about I went to every single one of my son's basketball games. But do you know what I did while I was on my son's basketball games? Exactly.
Yep.
Oh, he's in, he's in. Okay, set it down. Okay, now I'll pay attention.
Mhm.
And so what was I trading off? I was trading off a couple things. One was being completely present.
Mhm.
Two, how many times did my son look up and go, Dad's here? Oh, yeah, he's on his phone. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I guarantee you, if I was plugged into that game, even if he wasn't on, so everything you're doing, same thing. You have somebody sitting across the desk from you and you're answering emails and you're on your cell phone. There's something that's being traded in that moment. So once you start being able to set aside the things that are, let me turn my email off, let me flip my phone over. I actually have a point, and you can see it now because it's flipped over. It
Mhm.
is actually, I purposefully flip my phone over when I set it down, and I have none of my like buzz,
Yeah.
any sort of anything. So I could sit it down and then in 20 minutes I'll look and I'll be like, oh, I got 7 notifications since we've started talking. But I don't notice that until the very end. So what am I trading off? I'm
Mhm.
trading off 7 notifications for actually being here with you, Emily, and having a legitimate conversation instead of going, yeah, yeah, just a second. I need to answer this. Let me just, like, so what's the trade off?
Yeah.
And when we start to tell ourselves, I'm trading this text message for
Mhm.
my wife's attention,
Mhm.
I'm trading this email message for my assistant's respect. And, so when you start to notice what you're trading,
Mhm.
then it's easier to start going, you know what? You are more important than these phone calls. You
Mhm.
know what? You are more important than this email that's come in. You have my attention. I think that would be the first thing because once we start parsing that out, we're going to put ourselves in a position where we can be much more present for our people, and then
Mhm.
we could slow down and enjoy what we're doing much more.
Absolutely. I love that variable. That presence is often something that is a driver for my clients to contact me. Their wife says she wants me to be more present at home, or their relationship with their kids starts to strain. So that attention variable and the trade-off is so important in today's world. Well, Dennis, resilience isn't about who can tolerate the most strain. It's about who can structure performance in a way that protects clarity and longevity, your health, and your relationships. High achievement without recovery isn't strength, it's instability. If you want practical, science backed strategies to strengthen your mental fitness and operate more like an intellectual athlete, visit me at vantageviewcoaching.com. Thanks for joining us on Mental Performance Unleashed. Be sure to like, leave a review, and subscribe to the show so you don't miss the next episode.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.